The station floated silently above the dark side of Earth, its silver hull glinting faintly in the scattered light of distant stars. Inside, most of the crew slept, unaware of the strange signal drifting toward them. Only one man was awake. Ethan. Hale, veteran astronaut, was outside on a spacewalk. Tethered to the hull as he inspected damage from a passing meteor storm earlier that week. The void was silent, empty, and endless until something impossible happened. A voice whispered inside his helmet. It was not a normal transmission, not static, not radio interference. It was clear, haunting, and feminine. Human, be a father. To my children. Ethan froze in the dark, his breath fogging the inside of his visor. He turned, scanning the stars, half expecting to see someone floating beside him, but there was nothing. Only the cold black sea of space stretched out around him. His heart pounded so loudly that he wondered if the sound was drowning out more words. But the voice faded, leaving only his shallow breathing and the faint hum of his life support system. He quickly checked his comms. "Control, did you hear that?" His voice shook. The reply came back calm, confused. "Negative, Ethan. We received nothing. Repeat your status." Ethan licked his lips, unsure if he should repeat what he heard. If he did, they might think he was losing his mind. He forced his voice to stay steady. "Status green. Just thought I'd picked up interference." He cut the link before they could ask further questions. But deep inside, he knew it had not been interference. It had been too clear, too personal. A flash of light caught his eye. Just below the station, half hidden in the shadows of orbit, something floated large, metallic, and unfamiliar. His suit sensors blinked red, warning of an unidentified object. It looked like a pod black as obsidian, with faint blue veins. Pulsing across its surface like glowing rivers, the thing rotated slowly as though it had been drifting there for a long time, waiting. Ethan's body stiffened. Instinct told him to retreat to the airlock, call for backup, but the voice echoed. In his memory, be a father to my children. Against reason, he maneuvered closer. His gloved hands grabbed the edges of the mysterious pod, and to his surprise, it did not feel frozen or lifeless. It was warm, alive. The moment his fingers brushed the surface, the voice returned louder. This time, filling his skull, not through the radio, but directly inside his thoughts. Human, take them, protect them. Ethan jerked back, his body spinning slightly in the void until he stabilized with his thrusters. Fear surged through him, but curiosity burned hotter. Against all training and logic, he clipped the pod to his tether and began dragging it toward the docking bay. The pod resisted at first like some unseen force clung to it, but after a sharp pulse of light rippled across its surface, it surrendered and followed him. Inside the station, the docking bay lights flared to life as he pulled the pod in. The mechanical arms secured it, and the doors sealed shut, keeping the void outside. Ethan floated back, staring at the alien object with wide eyes. By then, the rest of the crew had been alerted. A few rushed into the bay, led by Dr. Claire. Rowan, the station's chief xenobiologist, she was sharp-eyed, cautious, and immediately unsettled by what she saw. "What is this, Ethan?" she demanded. He shook his head, unable to explain without sounding insane. "I found it." It wasn't. "Debris. It feels alive." Claire drifted closer, scanners in hand, frowning as streams of unreadable data filled her tablet. "There are life signs inside," she said finally, her voice low with disbelief. The other crew members exchanged nervous glances. "Life? Out here?" Ethan's heart raced. He wanted to say something, to ask the question burning in his chest, but the words caught in his throat. He had already heard the answer. Children hours passed as the pod was moved to the lab for closer study. Ethan stayed near it, pacing like a restless guardian. Told himself it was duty, curiosity, professionalism. But deep down, he knew something had shifted. That voice had chosen him. Midnight came, the station orbiting once again into the shadow. Of Earth, the lights in the lab dimmed, casting long shadows over the floor. Ethan had not slept, sat alone by the pod, watching the faint blue veins pulse like a heartbeat, and then it began again. The voice, clearer, sharper, undeniable. Human, my children need you. At that exact moment, the pod trembled. A vibration hummed through the floor, rattling the equipment. Ethan shot to his feet as the black surface cracked slightly, glowing light seeping out. "Claire," he shouted, but his voice was drowned by the rising hum. The pod split along its center, and inside, to Ethan's horror and awe, were small stasis chambers, 6 in total, each holding a figure. Their forms were delicate, childlike, but not human. Their skin shimmered faintly, their features an eerie blend of familiar and alien. Even in their frozen sleep, their eyes flickered beneath closed lids, as if they dreamed. Ethan's chest tightened. The voice inside his skull whispered one last time before fading into silence. "Protect them, Father." He stared at the children, in their glass cocoons, and for the first time since the whisper in the void, he spoke out loud, trembling. "What are you?" And in the stillness of midnight, one of the children's eyes snapped open, glowing like a star. The hum of the lab equipment filled the silence, but to Ethan, it felt like thunder inside his chest. The glowing eye that stared at him from inside the stasis chamber was not human. It was brighter, more alive, almost like a miniature sun burning behind a fragile face. He stepped closer, his breath shallow, as the rest of the pod began to pulse with strange energy. The other chambers flickered, but only one of the children remained awake, its small, glowing eyes locked onto Ethan, as if it already knew him. For a moment he forgot to breathe. He felt like prey caught in the gaze of something both fragile and dangerous. The lab doors slid open with a hiss. Dr. Claire rushed in with 2 technicians, her eyes wide at the sight of the partially opened pod. "What did you do?" she demanded. Ethan raised his hands, shaking his head. "I didn't touch it. It just opened." Claire floated closer, her tablet in hand, scanning the pod. Lines of alien symbols flashed across her screen. She frowned. "These aren't just stasis chambers. This is a cradle. They're children." Her voice carried disbelief, but also fear. One of the technicians muttered, "Children. They don't look human." Claire shot him a sharp look. "That's because they're not. Their DNA is—" She stopped, staring at the screen. "Partially human, at least half." No. Her words dropped like stones in the room. The crew exchanged nervous glances, whispering under their breath. Ethan felt the hair on the back of his neck rise. Half human. How was that possible? As if answering his unspoken question, the child inside the chamber blinked slowly, and Ethan felt something push into his mind. A whisper, not in his ears, but directly inside his head. "Do not fear. We are yours." Ethan staggered back, gripping the edge of a console. It's talking to me," he stammered. Claire frowned, her brows knitting. "Talking how?" Ethan pressed a trembling hand to his temple, not with words. In here, the technicians looked skeptical, but Claire did not dismiss it. She studied the child with cold, scientific eyes. Telepathy. Her voice was hushed, as if saying, "It too loud would make it real." Ethan shook his head, said they're mine. Said I'm supposed to protect them? Before Claire could respond, the pod released a sharp pulse of energy. Lights flickered. Alarms screamed for a second before stabilizing. The children's chambers vibrated, their fragile forms twitching inside as if they were restless in there. Frozen sleep. Claire cursed under her breath and began tapping commands into her console. The stasis is destabilizing. If it fails completely, we won't be able to contain them. Ethan leaned over one of the chambers, staring at the small figure curled inside. Its chest rose and fell faintly, not with oxygen but with something else in alien rhythm. He felt a strange tug, a pull deep inside his chest that made no sense. He had never wanted children of his own, never thought about being a father. Yet in that moment, watching the fragile thing stir, he felt protective, like it already belonged to him. "Ethan," Claire snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut through. His haze. "Step back. We don't know what they are. It could be dangerous." He looked at her, his jaw tight. "They're children." She narrowed her eyes. "They're weapons until proven otherwise." The tension in the room thickened. The technicians backed away, muttering about containment and protocol. Claire's hands never stopped moving across her screen, trying to stabilize the pod's systems, but the glow inside the chambers only grew brighter. Midnight shadows stretched across the lab as the station entered the dark side of its orbit again. And with the darkness came the voice. It filled Ethan's head like a storm, louder than before, layered as if more than one being spoke at once. Human, they are mine. Now they are yours. Protect them, raise them, be their father. Ethan's knees buckled under the weight of it. He clutched the console, his vision swimming. Claire shouted something behind him, but he couldn't hear her over the chorus of alien voices in his mind. And then silence. The sudden stillness was worse than the storm. Ethan gasped for air, sweat dripping down his face inside his helmet. The chambers fell quiet, their glow dimming back to a faint pulse. Claire's hands shook as she typed in the final sequence to lock the systems. For now, the children were stable again. But the damage was done. Everyone in that room had seen the truth. These beings were not dead relics, not cold experiments. They were alive, half-human, and connected to Ethan in a way no one could explain. Later, when the crew gathered in the command room, voices rose in heated argument. Some wanted to isolate the pod, to freeze it again, or eject it into space. Others argued that it could be the discovery of the century, a chance to understand alien life like never before. Ethan sat silently through it all, staring at the reflection of Earth turning below them. Only one thought burned inside his mind. Why him? Out of all the people in the universe, why had the voice chosen him? As the voices of debate swirled around him, a quiet sound tugged at his attention. Soft, barely. There, he turned. Down the corridor toward the lab, a faint echo whispered through the still air. A child's voice, calling his name. The corridors of the station seemed longer that night, filled with shadows that stretched like reaching hands. Ethan walked slowly, following the faint sound that curled through the silence. His boots clicked softly on the metal floor, and his breath fogged inside his helmet visor, even though the station was perfectly climate-controlled. He knew the sound should not exist. Children were not aboard this station. And yet he heard it. His name whispered in a trembling tone, fragile and desperate. Ethan. He reached the lab door. It slid open with a hiss, and cold blue light spilled out from the stasis pod. The 6 chambers glowed faintly, pulsing like heartbeats in unison. Ethan's chest tightened, one of them the same child, who had first opened its eyes, was awake again. Its small face pressed against the inside of the glass, eyes glowing with soft golden fire. For a long moment, they just looked at each other, human and alien, the air between them thick with something unspoken. And then the whisper returned, threading gently into his mind. Do not leave us, please. Ethan pressed a hand to the glass, his gloved palm resting over the tiny form inside. A warmth spread through his arm, sinking into his chest, and he felt their fear as if it were his own. They were not monsters. They were children, scared, fragile, and searching for someone to keep them safe. But the thought clawed at the back of his mind, half human, half something else. Who had created them, and why had he been chosen? Behind him, the sound of the lab door hissed open again. Dr. Claire stepped in, holding a datapad, her expression sharp but weary. She froze when she saw Ethan with his hand against the chamber. You're too close, she warned. They're imprinting on you. Ethan turned, confused. Imprinting? Claire's lips pressed into a thin line, like birds, certain mammals. The first being they connect with, they bond to it. It becomes their parent. Her words landed heavy. Ethan's stomach churned. Father, the word from the voice. Echoed again in his mind. Claire approached the pod, scanning quickly. This shouldn't be happening. Their systems were designed to keep them dormant. Something triggered an early awakening. You. She looked at Ethan, suspicion burning in her eyes. Whatever signal you picked up out there, it wasn't random. It was directed at you. Ethan felt a chill crawl down his spine. Why me? He whispered. Claire shook her head. I don't know, but I don't like it. Before Ethan could respond, alarms blared through the station. Red lights flashed across the walls. The computer's voice echoed overhead. Unidentified vessel detected. Approaching fast. Ethan and Claire locked eyes, fear tightening both their faces. Without another word, they ran to the command deck. The crew gathered, voices tense, as the radar lit up with the shape of a massive ship closing in. It was unlike any human design sleek, organic, with glowing lines pulsing across its hull. The ship moved with terrifying precision, stopping just outside weapons range. Low hum vibrated through the station, rattling the glass. Then a transmission. Cut through the speakers. A deep alien voice filled the deck. Return them. The words were heavily distorted, as though translated poorly, but the meaning was clear. Ethan's blood ran cold. Claire whispered, "They're here for the children." Commander of the station, Captain Reese, stepped forward. "This is United Earth Station Argus. Identify yourself." But the alien voice ignored the question. Return our children, or be destroyed. The crew fell silent. All eyes turned to Ethan, though no one spoke. The truth was obvious somehow. He had been bound to the children, and now whoever had sent them was demanding them back. Ethan's jaw clenched. He remembered the fear in the child's glowing eyes, the desperate whisper begging him not to leave. If he handed them over, what would happen? Would they be safer used? "Maybe we should comply," one officer muttered nervously. "We don't know what they're capable of." But before anyone could argue, the station shuddered violently. The alien ship fired a warning shot, a beam of energy grazing the outer hull. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The crew scrambled to stations as alarms screamed. Ethan gripped the railing, his mind spinning. The children stirred inside the lab, their chambers glowing brighter, as if responding to the threat outside. He felt a sudden rush in his skull voices. Overlapping, urgent. "Do not trust them. They will take us. They will use us. Protect us, Father." His breath caught. Their fear wasn't just imagined, it was real. Aliens outside weren't parents coming to reclaim lost children. They were hunters. Predators, as the ship outside charged its weapons again. Ethan made a choice that would change everything. He turned to the captain. "We can't give them back." Reese stared at him in disbelief. "What are you talking about? If we fight them, we're dead." Ethan's eyes hardened. "If we give them up, those children are dead, or worse." The ship outside loomed closer, glowing brighter with every second. And in the lab behind them, one of the children raised a small hand inside its chamber. The glass vibrated. The glow around it flared until it was blinding, casting long shadows. Across the station walls, for the first time, Ethan realized they weren't helpless at all. The station trembled as another blast struck the outer hull. Alarms screamed. Sparks burst from ceiling panels, and red lights washed the command deck in an eerie glow. Outside the viewport, the alien ship loomed larger, its sleek body glowing. With pulsing veins of light like some living creature circling its prey, every second it drifted closer, every hum of its engines pressing into the bones of the station crew got. Captain Reese barked orders, his voice sharp over the chaos. Shields at maximum. Reroute all power to defense. But everyone knew the truth. Their human technology was no match for the power that vessel carried. Another hit. A direct strike this time sent the crew sprawling across the deck. Da-da. Slammed against the railing, teeth rattling. Somewhere in the storm of alarms and shouting voices, he felt it again. The pull. The voice. The children. He ran from the command deck before anyone could stop him, his boots pounding against the trembling floor as he rushed down the corridor toward the lab. Behind the sealed glass, the 6 small figures glowed brighter than ever. Stasis pods rattled violently, as if their fragile occupants were pushing against the walls of their prison. Ethan pressed both hands to the barrier. "Stay calm," he whispered, his voice shaking. But the voices in his head rose together, overlapping in a desperate chorus. "Father, they are coming for us. Do not let them take us. Do not let them turn us into weapons." Ethan's pulse thundered. He staggered back, clutching his head as images flashed through his mind visions of the children. Grown, standing in chains of burning light, their powers drained by faceless aliens who treated them as tools of war. He gasped, nearly falling. To his knees, these weren't his nightmares. They were the children's memories, or maybe their fears. Either way, they were real enough to leave him shaking. The lab door slid open, and Dr. Claire stormed in, her face pale with fury. "What are you doing here, Hale? The captain needs you on deck." Ethan pointed toward the pod, his voice low and urgent. "They're terrified. They know what's coming. If we hand them over, it's over for them." Claire's grip tightened on her datapad. "They are not your children. They are specimens. And if returning them saves this station, then that's exactly what we'll do." Ethan's fists clenched. For the first time in his life, he wanted to hit a fellow crew member. But before either could speak again, the station shook so violently that both of them stumbled. A deafening sound tore through the metal walls. The alien vessel was locking onto them with grappling beams. They weren't just firing anymore. They were preparing to board. The lights in the lab flickered, then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the room, broken only by the glow of the stasis pods. The chambers cracked, lines of light splitting. Across their surfaces, Ethan's heart stopped. "No, stay inside. Don't." But it was too late. One by one, the pods hissed open, releasing cold vapor that curled like mist across the floor. The air filled with the sharp, metallic scent of alien fluids as small figures stepped into the darkness. The children were awake. They were small, fragile in shape, their limbs thin and delicate like reeds, but their skin shimmered faintly, shifting between pale human tones and translucent crystal patterns that pulsed with living light. Their eyes glowed gold, blue, green, each a different star burning from within. They looked at Ethan, 6 pairs of strange eyes fixed on him with something like trust. And then, as the alien ship clamped hard against the station hull, they raised their hands. A sudden wave of invisible force surged from them, rattling the entire lab. Monitors burst into sparks, the glass walls shook, and Ethan stumbled back with wide eyes. The children were generating energy in an invisible shield that wrapped itself around them instinctively. Claire stared, frozen in awe and fear. "God help us," she whispered. "They really are weapons." The station trembled again as metal screamed and Tortha aliens were breaching the docking bay. The intercom crackled with Reese's voice. "All hands, prepare for boarding. They're coming through." Shouts and the clatter of weapons filled the corridors outside. Ethan turned back to the children, his voice low but urgent. "You have to stay hidden. They'll take you." The children shook their heads, their thoughts flooding his mind at once. "No, Father, we fight. We're not weak." The lab doors suddenly exploded inward, and armed crew members stormed in, their rifles raised. One of them shouted, "Step away from them, Hale. Orders are clear. The pod is to be surrendered." Ethan spread his arms, blocking the children. With his body, his voice broke into a roar. "Over my dead body." And then, through the chaos, a sound echoed deep inside the station. A grinding hiss of metal, a new vibration crawling up the walls and through the floor. The alien boarders had arrived. The enemy was inside. The children stepped forward as one, their glowing eyes blazing in the dark. The crew raised their weapons. Ethan's pulse thundered, and from the corridor beyond came the first piercing alien scream. The scream cut through the steel corridors like a blade. High-pitched and guttural, a sound no human throat could ever produce. The armed crew members who had come to seize the children froze for an instant, their rifles shaking in their hands. The lights above flickered violently, throwing jagged shadows across the lab. From the hallway outside, heavy footsteps echoed metallic, deliberate, inhuman. Ethan's heart hammered in his chest. They were here. The aliens had boarded. The children clustered close behind him, their small forms trembling, but their eyes burning with fierce light. Their thoughts rushed into Ethan's head in a tangled chorus, urgent and sharp. "Do not let them take us. They will break us. They will use us." Ethan's fists clenched. He had no weapon, no armor, nothing but his body to shield them, and yet the idea of stepping aside never crossed his mind. He would protect them, even if it meant dying here. The corridor doors exploded inward, showering the lab with sparks and smoke. Shapes emerged through the haze of towering figures clad in black armor that seemed grown. Not built, their faces hidden behind smooth, glassy masks that glowed with streaks of crimson. Each carried a long, blade-like weapon pulsing with blue. Energy. The crew opened fire in panic, bullets tearing into the smoke, but the alien warriors moved with unnatural speed. They deflected shots with their glowing blades, closing the distance in seconds. One soldier was cut down instantly, his body collapsing in a spray of sparks as his rifle fell silent. Chaos filled the lab. Shouts, screams, the sharp crack of rifles, and the eerie hum of alien weapons clashed in a storm of violence. Ethan shoved the children back, pressing them against the wall. He turned, ready to fight barehanded if he had to butt before he could move. One of the children stepped forward. It was the one with golden eyes, the first who had ever looked at him. A small figure raised its delicate hand, and the lab shifted, bending, warping. A pulse of invisible energy exploded outward, hurling the nearest alien warrior across the room like a rag doll. Its body slammed into the wall with a sickening crunch, its mask cracking as sparks flickered out. Everyone froze for an instant. Crew, aliens. Even Ethan himself staring at the small child, who had just unleashed a power beyond anything they had ever seen. Claire's voice trembled as she whispered, "Oh my God, they really are weapons." Ethan saw something different in the child's face. Not cruelty, but terror. They weren't killing to destroy. They were defending themselves, just as he was. The other children raised their hands too, their eyes glowing brighter until the entire lab was bathed in alien starlight. A second pulse shook the walls, stronger, this time knocking half the alien warriors off their feet. The remaining crew dropped their weapons in shock. Stumbling back from the impossible display, through the smoke, a voice boomed from the station's comm system. Deep, harsh, commanding. "Return them to us now, or every soul aboard your station dies." The alien ship outside had linked directly into the comms, their message clear and merciless. Ethan spun toward the captain's voice channel, slamming his hand against the nearest console. "You can't give them up," he shouted into the mic. "You don't understand, they're not reclaiming lost children. They're harvesting soldiers, weapons. If we hand them over, it's a death sentence for them." The channel crackled. Captain Reese's voice came back, steady but grim. "And if we don't, it's a death sentence for all of us." The alien warriors regrouped, their blades glowing hotter, cutting through the last line of human defense. One of them lunged for the children, weapon raised high. Ethan moved without thinking, throwing himself between them, ready to take the strike. But at the last instant, another burst of energy erupted not from the children, but from all six. At once, the force was unlike anything yet. The walls groaned, consoles shattered, and the alien warrior disintegrated mid-strike, its body dissolving into ash under the surge of raw power. The children staggered, collapsing against Ethan's legs, drained but still clutching his hands. Their glowing eyes pleading with him. He felt their thoughts again, clearer than ever. "Do not give us away. Protect us. You're our father." Ethan's chest ached, his throat dry. He wanted to promise them safety, but outside the hole, the alien ship's weapons charged again, vibrations rattling the entire station. They had seconds at most before the final strike came. Claire stepped forward, her face pale and drawn. She looked from the children to Ethan, and for the first time, her cold, scientific certainty cracked. "If what you're saying is true, if they're meant to be weapons, then maybe they're also the only thing strong enough to save us." Her words hung in the smoke-filled air, heavy and undeniable. Ethan looked down at the six small figures clutching his arms, their skin glowing faintly as if fire lived beneath their fragile forms. The choice loomed before him, crushing in its weight, to render them and doom them or unleash them and risk everything. The ship outside gave its final warning, the comm system booming with alien fury: surrender them or die. Ethan turned, his eyes burning, his voice breaking into a growl. "Then we fight." And the children lifted their heads, their eyes blazing brighter than stars. The alien ship's final warning still echoed through the comms when the first beam struck. The station shuddered so violently that entire decks lost power, plunging corridors into darkness. Metal screamed as if the hull itself were in agony. Crew members clung to consoles, shouting orders, but everyone knew they had seconds before the next hit would tear the station apart. Ethan stood in the center of the chaos, 6 small figures pressed close to him, their eyes glowing like suns. He had already made his choice. The alien boarders advanced through the smoke-filled lab, their glowing blades raised. Ethan braced himself, but the children stepped forward instead. The golden-eyed child, the first to awaken, reached for his hand, small fingers curling around his wrist. A surge of warmth shot through him, not burning but alive as if fire itself had chosen him as a vessel. The other children joined hands, forming a circle around him, and in that instant Ethan felt their fear, their strength, their desperation. And then he felt power. The lab exploded with light. A dome of pure energy burst outward, throwing the alien warriors back against the walls. Their blades shattered like glass, their armor cracked and smoked. Even the human crew staggered, shielding their eyes. The children's bodies trembled, their thin frames barely able to contain the energy that coursed through them. Ethan dropped to one knee, his mind overwhelmed by their voices. "Guide us, Father. Protect us, and we will protect you." The station's intercom sparked to life again, the alien commander's voice thick with fury. "They are ours. You cannot keep them." Ethan rose slowly, his fists clenched. He stared into the burning eyes of the children and spoke aloud, his voice steady, even as the station groaned around him. "They don't belong to you. They belong to no one. They're free." The alien ship outside fired again, a massive beam, tearing toward the station. But before it could strike, the children lifted their hands as one. A blinding wave of energy erupted from them, passing through the walls, past the hull, out into the void. It struck the alien vessel like lightning. Yes. The ship convulsed, its glowing veins flaring wildly before collapsing in on themselves. Entire vessel twisted, broke apart, and then dissolved into a storm of burning fragments that vanished into the black dot. Silence followed. For the first time in hours, the station was still.
Ow.
No alarms, no gunfire, only the ragged breathing of those who remained alive. Ethan sank to the floor, his body weak, sweat dripping from his face. The children collapsed beside him, drained but alive, their glowing eyes dimming to soft embers. They had done it. It destroyed the impossible, Captain Reese's voice finally broke the silence, hoarse with disbelief. God, he survived. Crew members looked at Ethan, some in awe, some in fear. Dr. Claire knelt beside one of the children, scanning with trembling hands. They're stable. But if this is what they're capable of when young... She trailed off, unable to finish. The implication hung heavy in the air. Weapons. Or saviors. Ethan gathered the children closer, his arms wrapping around them protectively. They were fragile again now, just children trembling after the storm. He looked up at the captain, his voice raw. They're not weapons. They're children. They saved us. Don't forget that. Reese studied him for a long moment before nodding slowly, though unease still flickered in his eyes. For now, they stay under your care. But Earth Council will want answers. Later, as the station floated in silence above the curve of Earth, Ethan sat in the lab with the children sleeping near him, their soft breathing filling the room. He should have felt relief, but instead, unease gnawed at him. What would happen when the Council discovered them? Would they see saviors or tools to control? He knew the answer already, and it filled him with dread. The station lights dimmed, signaling the approach of midnight once again. Ethan leaned back, exhaustion heavy on his shoulders. That was when the voice returned soft, echoing, familiar. The voice of their mother. You have done well, human. You've taken the first step. But this is not the end. Others will come. Stronger, hungrier. Protect them. The galaxy itself will fall. Ethan's eyes snapped open. He looked down. At the 6 sleeping children curled against him, their faces calm, innocent, unaware of the storm still ahead. He tightened his grip around them, his voice a whisper in the stillness. I'll protect you, no matter what. But outside, far beyond the reach of Earth in the endless dark of space, other ships were already stirring, and midnight's echo promised this was only the beginning.